Beneath an apple tree lay thousands of names. Names written on scraps of paper. Names hidden inside glass jars. If those jars were discovered, people would die. If they survived, families might one day find each other again. For years they remained buried beneath the soil, silent, forgotten by most of the world. But those jars held something more valuable than money, more valuable than gold. They held identities, memories, children. Because somewhere beyond the tree, a woman was risking her life to save them, one child at a time. Her name was Irena Sendler, and while armies were fighting a war, she was fighting a different battle. A battle against time. A battle against fear. A battle to keep thousands of children from disappearing forever. Irena Sendler was born in Poland in 1910, long before the world knew her name, long before war, long before anyone imagined the horrors that were coming. Her father was a doctor, but he was known for something more important than his profession. He treated poor Jewish patients who often could not afford medical care. Many doctors refused. He did not. To him, people were people. Need mattered more than religion. Humanity mattered more than prejudice. When Irena was still young, her father died after contracting a disease from one of his patients. But before his death, he left her with a lesson she would never forget. If someone is drowning, you help them. Even if you cannot swim, that lesson would stay with her for the rest of her life. And one day, it would help save thousands. September 1939. Everything changed. Germany invaded Poland. The war that would become the Second World War had begun. Soon, Nazi forces occupied Warsaw. At first, restrictions appeared. Then discrimination. Then isolation. Then terror. Jewish families were stripped of rights. Their freedom disappeared piece by piece. The process was gradual enough that some people hoped it would stop. It didn't. Instead, it got worse. Far worse. Eventually, the Nazis created what became known as the Warsaw Ghetto, a section of the city sealed off from the rest of the world. Hundreds of thousands of Jewish men, women, and children were forced inside. Families were crammed into tiny apartments. Food was scarce. Disease spread rapidly. Hunger became part of daily life. Children wandered the streets searching for scraps of food. People died from starvation. Others died from illness. Many simply disappeared. The walls around the ghetto did more than separate people physically. They separated suffering from those who preferred not to see it. But Irena saw, and once she saw, she could not look away. At the time, Irena worked as a social worker. Her position gave her access to places many others could not enter. Officially, she was helping fight disease outbreaks. Unofficially, She witnessed one of the greatest humanitarian disasters of the war. Every day she saw children, hungry children, terrified children, children whose futures were shrinking with every passing week. Rumors began circulating. People whispered about deportations, about trains, about camps, about people who left and never returned. Many still could not imagine the full reality, but enough evidence existed to know one thing: the children were running out of time. For Irena, there came a moment when observing was no longer enough. She had to choose: stay safe or act. Many good people throughout history have faced that moment. The point where compassion demands a price. The point where doing the right thing becomes dangerous. Irena made her choice. She would help the children escape, no matter the cost. Saving one child would have been difficult. Saving thousands seemed impossible. Yet that was the task Irena chose. Working with members of the Polish resistance, she helped create a secret network dedicated to one goal: getting children out of the Warsaw Ghetto before it was too late. Every rescue carried enormous risk. If discovered, everyone involved could be executed. Yet the operation continued. Children were smuggled out through hidden routes, ambulances, courthouses, and supply shipments. Each escape was different. Each required courage. But perhaps the hardest part was not getting the children out. It was convincing parents to let them go. Mothers and fathers were asked to make an impossible choice: keep their children close and risk losing them to the horrors that were unfolding, or place them in the hands of strangers and hope they would survive. Many parents never saw their children again, but they chose hope. One child at a time, the rescue effort grew. And with every successful escape, another life was given a chance at a future. Irena understood something important. Saving a child's life was not enough. A child also needed an identity, a history, a family, a name. So she kept records, carefully and secretly, the real names of the children, the names they had been given in hiding, information that might one day reconnect families. These records were written on small pieces of paper, then hidden. Not in a bank, not in an office, but inside glass jars. The jars were buried beneath an apple tree. Simple, ordinary, easy to overlook. Yet beneath the soil rested thousands of identities, thousands of futures, thousands of hopes waiting for a better day. If the papers were discovered, the entire operation could collapse. If the jars survived, families might someday find one another again. The jars became symbols of faith. Faith that someday the war would end. Faith that truth would matter again. Faith that names would not be forgotten. Eventually, danger caught up with her. In 1943, the Gestapo arrested Irena. 4 months. She had lived under constant threat. Now the threat had become reality. She was taken for interrogation. The Gestapo wanted names. The names of children. The names of rescuers. The names of everyone involved. They believed torture would make her talk. They were wrong. The interrogations were brutal. She was beaten repeatedly. Her legs and feet were severely injured. The pain was immense. But despite everything, she refused. Every name remained protected. And with those names, thousands of lives remained protected. Eventually, the Nazis made their decision. Irena was sentenced to death. The outcome seemed inevitable. The woman who had saved so many children was now expected to die. But history had one more surprise. Members of the Polish resistance secretly bribed a guard. At the last moment, arrangements were made. Instead of being executed, Irena escaped. Official records listed her as dead. To the resistance, she was still needed. And despite everything she had endured, she returned to helping others. Eventually, the war ended. The Nazi regime collapsed. The truth emerged, and the scale of the tragedy stunned the world. Millions had been murdered. Families searched desperately for loved ones. Some searches ended in reunions. Many ended in heartbreak. Then came the jars. The records Irena had hidden. The names she had protected. The identities she had preserved. Because of those records, surviving children could be connected to their histories. Not every family could be reunited, but the names survived. And sometimes, when everything else is taken away, a name is where rebuilding begins. Most of us will never face the choices Irena Sendler faced. Most of us will never live under occupation. Most of us will never be asked to risk our lives to save thousands. But her story remains important because courage is not limited to wartime. Every generation faces moments when doing the right thing carries a cost. Moments when